Hare Krishna. May I ask you if there is anyone who is here for the first time, maybe?
Hare Krishna.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Very nice, very nice. You're Austrian?
I'm German.
You're German. And you're Indian.
I'm Indian, Prabhu. Yes, yes.
Uh-huh.
I just came last night, and I'm here just for the 3 days. I was here for the business. I am based in Hyderabad. Krishna conscious from last 2 years.
Uh-huh.
My Prabhuji, my guru, he told me that when you go there, whichever part of the city you are, you must visit and find out the place.
Oh, great,
Put it in the
great.
map, and I was just luckily.
Perfect instruction.
Yes, yes, yes. So I could figure out, and just Krishna helped me to reach here.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much
Yes.
for coming. So today I was asked to speak about japa. Means mantra meditation, and how mantra meditation and community, good relationships in community are connected. So in his book, The Nectar of Instruction, Upadeshamrita, Rupa Goswami, this is one saint in our tradition, says, he explains the path of devotion, in fact, and it is very much connected also to our mantra meditation and, of course, also community building. And the first prerogative is to accept a bona fide spiritual master on this path. And Rupa Goswami says, Vacho vegam, manasah krodha vegam, jihva vegam udarapasta vegam, etan vegan yovishakirta dhiraha, sarvam apimam pritivim sashishyat. And that means he defines who is bona fide spiritual master. And he says, Vacho vegam, that he is able to control his speech. And what does it mean? That means that he speaks only about Krishna, how to serve Krishna, how to develop love for Krishna. Of course, if he has to do something practical, he speaks also about this, but also this practical service is connected to serving Krishna, somehow or other. So, Vacha Vegam, by this we can recognize, this is the first sign by which we can recognize a bona fide spiritual master. In fact, the Vedas, these are our basis of our spiritual knowledge, and these are vast books, contain millions and in fact billions of verses on spiritual knowledge, and also on other topics, on other knowledge. They say that that we should always seek the essence. Atato Brahma Jigyasa. Now is the time to inquire about the absolute truth. This is in Vedanta Sutra. This is the basic book of spiritual knowledge. And it is explained, this Vedanta Sutra, in Srimad Bhagavatam. The most complete form of Vedic knowledge is contained in Srimad Bhagavatam. And there is also the same statement in some other form. It says, Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa, that we live for inquiring about absolute truth. That is the purpose of living, in fact. Jivasya Tattva Jigyasa. Why I stress this? Because the Vedas don't support spiritual laziness, that we just join to some movement or religion, and we expect to spiritually advance. We won't if we don't inquire. If we don't be spiritual scientists, in fact. We should be spiritual scientists. We should deeply inquire about the truth, who we are, and what's the absolute reality, and how we are connected to it. So, Vajravegam is the first sign of bona fide spiritual master, that he speaks about absolute truth. And of course, we should, the other side of Vedic teaching is that we should check, as we say, check and balances. We check who is bona fide spiritual master. Also, for this to be checked, we should know what the Shastra is teaching about, so that we can see if the Guru is teaching the same thing. And this, we have three checks: Guru, Sadhu, and Shastra. So the words of Guru should be in line of Shastra. Shastra means scriptural knowledge. Yes, and of course with Sadhu, these are bona fide saints from history. Shishi Gaurnitai ki jai. So the first thing is Vajravegam, and second thing is Manasa Krodha Vegam, that he is able to control his mind, and Manasa Krodha, and anger. Anger is very difficult to control, isn't it? Where something goes wrong, we immediately become angry. But nevertheless, saints sometimes become angry. Why is that, if it should be controlled? Krodha Vegam. Do you have an idea?
I remember I once read that Prabhupada sometimes got angry, but he got angry in a controlled manner. Like he didn't get overwhelmed by anger.
Yes.
He used it sometimes to teach or to show something.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So the saint, if he becomes angry, he uses his anger as a tool to achieve something good, to achieve, to teach something, to convey some knowledge, to proper knowledge. Maybe the student couldn't understand without his expressing anger. So saints sometimes express anger in controlled manner, not that they're overwhelmed with anger, but with some higher purpose in mind. Manasa Krodha Vegam, Jihva Vegam, that means tongue. And we all want to taste some delicious food, don't we? So we should check if someone wants to is very attached to tasting delicious food. If we get delicious food, it's no need that we decline it just because it's tasty. But we can see if one is attached to it or not. That means Jihva Vegam. Udara Pasta Vegam. Udara means the belly, the stomach. So if he's ferocious eater, so we can check if he eats too much, and then we can, of course, see if he's overweight. So he should be controlled also in consuming food, in eating. And upasta, that means sexual organs. If he's attached to some opposite sex, he shouldn't be, of course. That is the sign of some material conditioning. And in fact, one of the most powerful material conditioning is attachment to the opposite sex. And if he is able to control these pushes, then he is considered bona fide. Okay, then when we choose a bona fide spiritual master, according to these conditions, and also there is other conditions. These are just the gist. One of conditions should be, of course, that he's able to enthuse us for service to Krishna. Yes, this is very important, and this is also included in Vachavegam, in his speech. If he's able to enthuse us in Krishna consciousness, and to surrender to Krishna. Yes, this is Vachavegam. And then when we find a person who can inspire us in spiritual progress, then Rupa Goswami explains what is detrimental for our spiritual progress. First, he says what is not good for our spiritual progress, what is detrimental. And he says, what's that? Atyahara prayasascha prajalpaniyamagraha janasangascha laulyam cha shadbir bhaktir vinashati. And what destroys our devotional service? Atyahara, too much eating or too much collecting things. Atyahara. And then prayasa, to endeavor too much for material achievements. About eating we spoke before, but also over endeavoring is the sign that it's not good for our spiritual progress. If we endeavor for things too much, then our time for spiritual activity will be very much reduced. So we should be careful not to endeavor too much for material achievements. Yes. Atyahara prayasa. Prayasa is this endeavor. Atyahara prayasascha prajalpa. Prajalpa means gossiping. And when people come together, usually they gossip. They speak about so many useless topics and not about how to get spiritually advanced. So this is one of the detrimental things in our spiritual progress, especially if we talk bad about others. This is the most detrimental. Once I read in some newspaper, before my Krishna consciousness even, that one bishop, you know what is bishop? Of Catholic Church in Brasilia, I think, in Brazil or Argentina or somewhere in South America. He said that because gossip is also condemned in Christian religion, and he said that it's impossible to avoid gossip. So it shouldn't be counted as a sin. But Rupa Goswami is not sharing his opinion. Because it is detrimental for our spiritual progress. We must check this tendency. We all want to express our superiority to others because we want to play a role of God in this material world. And since we want to be superior to anyone else, we try to exhibit the faults of others. Yes, to point out the faults of others, and and to ridicule others for different things. Of course, usually we don't see our own problems, or even if we see them, we represent them as virtues. Usually, it's very often, or we find some excuse that it's other fault if we cannot present them as some virtue, but it's other fault. Yes. So this is prajalpa, and then is niyamagraha. Niyamagraha is twofold quality and is also detrimental. Niyamagraha means niyama means instruction, like commandment, and agraha means attachment, over attachment. And if we are over attached to some rule, and we apply it even when it is not beneficial for our spiritual progress, it's called niyamagraha and is detrimental for our spiritual progress. And also, if we don't follow the rules just because we don't feel to follow, we whimsically follow rules. This is also niyamagraha. And the modern world is full of niyamagraha, also in not spiritual environment. For example, if in the middle of the night there is red light on the street, and there is nowhere around, and we stand on this red light, just for the red light, not for some security or whatever. But of course, if we go through the red light, we can be stopped by police and we pay the fine. So this is niyamagra from the government point of view. Just following the rules for the rules' sake, not for some purpose. Yes. So we should avoid this in our spiritual progress. This niyamagraha. And then jhana sangha. Jhana sangha means the company of worldly people. We should avoid this if we want to spiritual progress. Because, as we discussed yesterday, whoever or whatever we meet in our life leaves an impression in our consciousness, if we want it or not. Everything leaves some impression. Even singing of birds leaves impression on our consciousness. Because if we are used to some birds singing, if we not hear them, we are disturbed. Or if there are other birds in some other country, not so sweet to our ears. So everything leaves deep impressions in our consciousness. So if we want to, for example, if someone associates with drunkards, he will certainly become a drunkard. Why should we otherwise would associate with them? Or if someone, for example, would associate with the alpinists, he would be bored to death if they would discuss where they climbed and what they experienced. If he would just sit around them, he would definitely try to climb himself. So it's also the same in our spiritual progress. If we want to have steady and good spiritual progress, we certainly must associate with spiritually advanced devotees. Not just anyone, but we should try to find those who are inspired in spiritual path. Yes, this is very important. And lolyam, that means greed. Greed. We should avoid greed for material things. We want, of course, because material conditioning is such that we want to survive on our material level. And in order to survive on our material level, we should have things, of course. And more things we have, we consider it that we are more secure, that our life is more secure, isn't it? So this greed is very much, very deeply in our heart as part of material consciousness. So when we try to spiritually progress, we should be very diligent to avoid this tendency, this greedy tendency. Yeah. And these are 6 enemies of our spiritual progress. And then we have 6 items that help us in spiritual progress. And these are utsaha nishchanandaryat, tat karma pravartanat, sangha tyaga satovriti, shadbir bhakti prasidyati. And that means utsahan nishchayadaryat. Utsahan means great enthusiasm. Utsaha. Yes, we should be very enthusiastic. If we are lukewarm, we will not succeed in anything in this world, not even in material things, because we need to be enthusiastic about anything we want to achieve. If we want to get to university and to become a PhD, for example, we want to study very enthusiastically. Or if we want to become a gold medalist in Olympic Games, we also have to enthusiastically train if you want to achieve something. And of course, also in spiritual progress this applies, that we should be very enthusiastic, very enthusiastic. If our enthusiasm goes down, it should be red light, alarm. Yes, so we should not allow ourselves to lose our enthusiasm. Of course, we should get enthusiasm also in enthusiastic devotee association. Utsahan nishcha. Nishcha means that we are very much convinced, fixed conviction in our spiritual progress. That we don't go here and there, and sometimes we are enthusiastic and sometimes not. We should be fixed in our conviction. And Daryat means patient. I don't know about English language or German, but in Slovenian we have a proverb that patience is God's grease. That means that everything goes smoothly if it is accompanied with patience. So we should be patient in every aspect of life. In fact, if we want to achieve something, we should be patient. We cannot achieve anything great overnight. So patience is required. Also enthusiasm, not just patience, but enthusiasm also, and conviction. Yes. Tatat karma pravartanat means that we should serve with Krishna consciousness. We should perform activities for Krishna's pleasure. This is tat karma pravartanat. Tat means Krishna. It's absolute truth, like Tatvam Asi or Om Tat Sat. These are it indicates Krishna, absolute truth. So tat karma pravartana, that we do activities for Krishna's pleasure. Yes. Sanga tyagat, that means that we reject material association. Sanga tyagat. And satovrite, that we follow the saints in their example. For example, I was Christian before. I joined Krishna consciousness, and I was raised in Christianity, and then my faith was very weak during my university time. And then I was writing a diploma for university, and I came across again this Francis of Assisi, and he inspired me very, very much again in my spiritual journey. He's very interesting saint. He was completely devoted to God, and he called also animals his brothers and sisters, and not just animals, also the sun and the moon. These were his brothers and sisters. Also death, he called sister death. Yes. So we should be also following saints who inspire our spiritual progress, because saints are connected to Krishna, and they evoke in ourselves this desire to be like them. So we should associate, and also not just the saints from the past, but most importantly with the saints of present saints. So we should associate with present saints. Shishi Gauranitai ki jai. Yes. And these 6 items make our spiritual progress very smooth. Of course, in Kali Yuga, the main thing of the main spiritual activity, because we spoke before about spiritual activities that are pleasurable for Krishna, is chanting of his holy names. It is said in the Shastras, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Namaiva Kevalam, Kalo Nastyeva, Nastyeva, Nastyeva Gatiranyata. That in this age of Kali, which is the age of quarrel and hypocrisy, and I believe I should not prove to you that it's true that we live in the age of quarrel and hypocrisy. It's all around. It's permeated this society with quarrel and hypocrisy. So the only way to connect with God really deeply is chanting of his holy names. Harir Nama, Harir means, Hari means God, and Nama means the name. It's the same word, Nama, name. Harir Nama, Harir Nama, Harir Namaiva Kevalam. Nama Eva, Eva means certainly. And Kevalam means only. Certainly and only God's name, God's name, God's name. Kalo means in the age of Kali. Nasti means not, there is not. And Eva again, certainly. Nastyeva, nastyeva, nastyeva. Certainly there is not, certainly there is not, certainly there is not. Gatir anyata, other path. So, if we want to progress in our spiritual journey, we should certainly chant Lord's holy name. And this is not just in the Vedas. This is a universal principle, in fact, in all spiritual traditions, bona fide spiritual traditions. For example, Jesus said, "Hallowed be thy name." And in Psalms, it is stated, those who call upon the Lord's name, they will be saved. And also in Islam religion, they have 99 names of Allah. And also the Buddhists call upon the Buddha's name. So we can see that in all traditions in Kali Yuga, this is the process for achieving our spiritual goal. To chant the holy name, to chant the holy name, and to chant the holy name. Yes. So the next verse, how it is disconnected to spiritual community. The next verse in Upadeshamrita, in this nectar of instruction, it's about community. It says, Dadati pratigrihnati, guhya maketi prichati, bunkte bojayate cheva, shatvidam priti lakshanam. Priti lakshanam, priti means love. And lakshanam means the items, how to develop love. And first thing is dadati. And this means to give. This is the same word as in Slovenian also. Dati is in Slovenian and the dati is in Sanskrit. The dati, to give. And what's the most important thing to give? What do you think? Love. Yes. Yourself. Yes. Service. Time.
Undivided attention.
Undivided attention. Whatever you said, it's true. It's very, very good. And especially if it is connected to Krishna. So, the conclusion is that we should give Krishna consciousness. That we should help others to progress in Krishna consciousness. So, as you said, time and yourself and service and so on, this should be connected with this in mind, with this goal in mind, to give Krishna to others. Because Krishna is the highest gift, matchless gift. Prabhupada, when he came to the West, in New York, they opened a center in small storefront in New York City. And this was a gift shop before, and it was named Matchless Gifts. And they kept this sign, Matchless Gifts. So, and it's true, that became Matchless Gifts when Krishna consciousness was delivered to others. So this is the matchless gift that we give to others, Krishna consciousness. Activities, time, yourself, everything connected to Krishna consciousness. Yes, dadati. And pratigrihnati, that we accept things. These are also loving exchange. And that means that we should accept Krishna. And things related to Krishna. Activities related to Krishna. That we should accept this. Dadati pratigrihnati. Guhyam aketi prichati. Guhyam means something very confidential, mystery. So Guhyam aketi, that we talk confidentially with others, with friends, of course, not just anyone. Yes, Guhyam aketi prichati. And what does it mean that we talk confidentially? That we speak about our spiritual progress. So we can share our thoughts about how we spiritual progress, and we can inquire also. We talk, and prichati means that we also inquire about how to spiritually progress. Dadati pratigrichnati guhyam aketi prichati bhunkte bojayati cheva. And that means that we feed other people with Krishna's prasad. This is also common in every human dealings, in fact, to give some food and to receive some food from them, and to, of course, to talk confidentially, and to give gifts and receive gifts. This is normal human relationship. So Krishna consciousness is not something unnatural, that we do something what is not natural for human nature. But we use these human natural tendencies to serve Krishna with them. This is proper use of our human birth. Yes. So these 6 items are priti lakshanam. That means that are items of loving exchanges among devotees. And in order to build spiritual community, we should have priti lakshanam. We should build our communities on loving relationships. This is most important. So, as Prabhu said, we should serve one another. This is very important. Because this service is in fact most pleasurable thing. I remember when I start Krishna consciousness, when I heard that I should serve, that I should be servant, I was terrified. Oh my God, I should become a servant. I was terrified. But in fact, if we consider it deeply, this is most pleasurable thing to serve. Nothing gives us so much pleasure as service. There is some book in Slovenian, small booklet. It's about one little boy who was very much afraid of some deep valley, which was called hell. And one day, this boy heard conversation between his father and mother. And mother said to father that she would like to bring some special flowers to Mary's altar, to bring this flower to Mary in the church. And but these special flowers were growing just in this deep, dark valley called hell. And he heard this conversation, and next morning, before the sunrise, he woke up and he went to this deep, dark valley called hell. uh, he was terrified, of course, of this deep, dark valley. And in the bottom of this valley, there was some brooklet, and the sound of this water was really terrifying, echoing from all sides. uh, so he just ran to these special flowers and picked them up, the whole bunch, and then he didn't look left or right, just ran out of this valley towards his home. And when he was returning home, he saw his mother. He just stepped on the threshold, and the first rays of rising sun were starting to shining on his mother. And this was the most precious moments in his life. And when he came to his mother, he gave this bunch of flower to her, and she realized what sacrifice he did to get these flowers, because she knew that he's terrified of this valley. So what I wanted to say is that he remembered till the last day of his life as the most enjoyable thought his sacrifice for someone he loved. So this service for someone we love gives us most pleasure in life. So we should love Krishna, and we should love Krishna's devotees as ourselves, and we should serve them, of course, and that will bring us utmost pleasure. Yes. So, and this is the key for a successful community. Yes. Okay. We'll finish here. Thank you very much for your attention. Is there any question, any thought, any comment? Please.
I have a question. So you mentioned today like 6 enemies and also 6 beneficial things. And I was thinking about like why we get proud. So even if we kind of start to develop ourselves in a spiritual way, we are not more attached to some basic stuff. We get proud about this. And where is this enemy?
Why we become proud?
Yeah, because it's definitely an enemy also.
Yes,
If you're
yes,
proud.
yes. The pride is one of the greatest enemies. Lord Chaitanya, it's here on the altar on the right, says Trinada Pisunichana Taroriva Sahishnana Amanina Manadina Kirtanyak Sadahari. That in order to chant the holy name, because we connected this, if we are spiritually strong and we chant the holy name very diligently, and every day we dedicate our time to chant the holy name, we should be more humble than the blade of grass. Trinada Pisunichana. And more tolerant than a tree. Taroriva Sahishnana. And we shouldn't expect respect from others. Yes, this is very difficult also. And we should give respect to every living entity. So, pride. Pride is, of course, material conditioning. As we said before, we want to be God in this world. And in order to play successfully this part of God, the pride is very handy. We use this pride to defeat enemies, and there are many enemies if we are materialistic. Not just human beings, not just your neighbors, are your enemies. Also other mm, living entities and so on are threat to our existence, material existence. So they are our enemies. And pride, of course, accompanies our material existence. So in 13th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains in the beginning what is real knowledge. And it starts with amanitvam adambitvam. Amanitvam is the same as we have here, trinada pisunichana, amanina manadena. So amanitvam means very humble, to be very humble. That means that we don't consider ourselves as God, to be humble. That means that we accept our position. And our position is anu. Vedas explain that we are anu, insignificant. The God is vibhu, is unlimited, all-powerful, but we are anu, completely insignificant. Completely insignificant. So we should accept this. Otherwise, this pride is the sign of madness, in fact. In Sanskrit, there is the same word, in fact. Mada means pride, and it means also madness. Because if we consider ourselves something great, we are mad. Because we live just few years, this 100 years maybe. But what is this in comparison to eternity? Or even in comparison to 1,000 years? What is 100 years? Nothing. Yes?
See, you spoke about pride, humbleness, and all those things. But do you think it's very subjective in nature? Because pride, what is pride for me might be different from pride for somebody else. And how do we all compare that? I mean, there's no logic for us to compare ourselves with the God, because it's something which is uncomparable.
Yes, of course. I will elaborate on this. Also, thank you very much for your question. Yes, and every living entity in material world, this is material conditioning, considers himself or herself something very important. That means, in other words, God of his world. We all create our world, and we protect this world from others, other living entities, others who consider themselves God. So we consider ourselves as some way or other, some master of our world, and this master means God. What else? Because God is the only master. We are just a servant. Jivara Swarupa Hoy, Krishna Nitya Das. We are Nitya Das. Krishna Nitya Das. That means we are always the servant of Krishna. In all situations, even atheists are in all situations servants of Krishna. Yes. Of course, this topic is very vast. We should keep it concise. Because, for example, for atheists, they always serve their senses, isn't it? What they see, what they hear, what they eat, and so on. And one of the prominent names of Krishna is Hrishikesha, the master of the senses. So they serve Krishna. Of course, they don't know that they serve Krishna, but in every situation they serve just Krishna. But as Krishna is explained this in 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Ye pyanya divata bhakta yajanti shradayamvita tipimam eva kantaya yajantya vidipurvakam. That means, although they serve me, just me, they serve me in wrong manner. because they think they don't do this service with love for me. So they do this service with wrong intention, so in wrong way. And in next verse he says, the aham hi sarvayagyanam bhoktacha prabhurevacha natumam abhijananti tatvenatas chevantiti. That I'm bhoktacha, I'm the enjoyer of all sacrifices. Bhoktacha prabhurevacha, and also the master of everything. So the one who considers himself an enjoyer of anything or master of anything, the Lord says he lives in ignorance and he will certainly fall down. Chiyavantite, he will fall down. So, of course, because of our material conditioning, we consider ourselves as bhokta, as enjoyer, and master. And this is then the first thing of spiritual knowledge is to become amanitvam. Amanitvam adambitvam, as we said that Krishna says in the 13th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita. So that we are humble, that we realize this, our insignificance, that we are insignificant, so we should be humble. And then is adambitvan. It seems the same word, but is not. Adambitvan means that so we are humble. We should not expect others to worship us, to give us some significance. This is mean amanitvam. This means humbleness. And then adambitvam is pridelessness, and that means it seems the same thing, but is not. That we don't act from this position of God. The first thing is we don't expect others to worship us as God, and the other is that we don't act from the position of God. This is the difference. Yes, and these are two first items of knowledge Krishna explained in 13th chapter. So, yes, as you said, this is deadly enemy, is pride. And by spiritual progress, in fact, with seriously and sincerely chanting of Lord's holy name, this impurity will go out from the heart. As Lord Chaitanya says, Cheto Darpana Marjanam. With the chanting of the holy name, our heart gets purified. Okay, thank you very much for your question. Is there any other comment, question?
Hare
Please.
Krishna Prabhu. On the path of spiritual journey, when we perform the good karmas, we know that these are the good things to do, these are the good people to meet, these are the japa and all those things to do. But still, in this Kali Yuga, why we lose the senses and why we, knowing that this is the right thing to do, but still the path gets changed and gets, as a human start performing losing the senses and start doing something wrong. So the basic question here is, why even after knowing the things that this is wrong thing, still the person start going into that side?
Yes, this is very same question in different words as Arjuna asked Krishna in 3rd chapter of Bhagavad Gita. Atakena prayuktamam papam chariti purusha anicanapi varshnaya baladivan yojita. Atakena prayuktamam papam chariti, that he commits sins, papam chariti purusha. Anichan, without even desiring it. Anicanapi varshnaya baladiva, as to be dragged by some force. So we know what is beneficial for our spiritual progress, and we know what is detrimental for our spiritual progress, but still we do something that's not beneficial for our spiritual progress. And Krishna answers this, and he says, Kama yesha, krodha yesha, rajoguna samudbhava mahashano mahapapma vidanamika varinam. This is only lust, Arjuna. Lust, that it's born out of mode of passion. And I believe the word in German for passion is, what is the word of?
Leidenschaft.
Leidenschaft. Leidenschaft. And it is and it is the same as suffering, isn't it? The same word.
And it's so nice because it even contains suffering.
It contains
Leiden means to suffer.
to suffer.
And there's this word game where you say Leidenschaft, die Leidenschaft. It makes suffering.
Yes. Yes. And it's also in English, passion. It is also suffering, because we say the passion of Christ, isn't it? Passion of Christ. That means the suffering of Christ. Passion means suffering. And also in Slavic languages it's the same. Passion means suffering. So this lust is a strong desire to sense enjoyment. And of course, as we said before, Krishna is Hrishikesha, is the master of the senses. So our senses should be engaged, not that we deny our senses, but we should be engaged in serving Krishna, in serving Hrishikesha. It is said in Shastras, Sarvapadi vinirmuktam tatparatvina nirmalam Hrishikena Hrishikesha sevanam bhakti ruchati. That we should lose our false identity. We should reject our false identity. Sarvapadi vinirmuktam. Upadi means something we identify with. For example, I'm a woman, I'm a man, I'm a dog, I'm a human being, I'm white, I'm Indian, I'm Chinese, I'm doctor, I'm artist, or whatever. These are just different upadis. They don't have anything to do with our spiritual self. So sarvopadi, sarva means everything. Sarvopadi, all these upadis, all these identifications should be rejected. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam. In fact, we should be liberated from them. Not to bother with them again. Sarvopadi vinirmuktam tatparatvena nirmalam. And to serve Krishna, Hrishikeda Hrishikesha Sevanam. Serve Krishna, who is the master of the senses with our senses. And this seva, this service, is called bhakti. Bhaktir uchate. Yes. So, with chanting of the holy names, as we've said before, we also purify this tendency to enjoy with our senses, this lust. And then we will not be forced against our will to commit something we don't want. Yes. And this lust is also accompanied with anger. Because everything in this world is temporary. So something which gives pleasure to our senses will certainly lose this. And then anger starts. Anger part. And this is tamaguna, the ignorance. And it brings even more suffering than passion. Yes. So we should take to Krishna consciousness. And also Krishna explained this, that with spiritual knowledge we should conquer this enemy. And he called this kama, this passion, and this striving for sense enjoyment as mahashano mahapapma, that one who devours our life, and it is mahapapma, the most sinful force, yes, that we should avoid. So, as we said before, with this chanting of holy names, everything goes out from our heart, what is abhadrani, what is not beneficial for us. Okay? Is there anything else? Please.
Tell me please, how can we engage our lust in serving Krishna exactly?
Yes, we should. Passion, for example, is very good to create something. So we should use passion to serve Krishna passionately, with great enthusiasm. And this desire for sense gratification will gradually diminish. But of course, we can use also, Krishna says in 7th chapter of Bhagavad-Gita, Balam balavatam chaham kama raga vivarjitam dharma virudo bhuteshu kamosmi bharatarshapa. That he is kama, he is lust, which is not against the rules of Shastra. So in this way we can use I don't know our natural propensities for sense enjoyment, for example, sex life, for producing children, and of course we should bring them up in Krishna consciousness, and we can prepare delicious prasad for Krishna, and we should feed other devotees, and we should also take Lord's remnants. And if we are very strict in this, that we we honor just prasad, we eat just prasadam, and we have we have nice children in Krishna consciousness. We channelize our passion and our karma in Krishna consciousness. So then it becomes, as Prabhupada says, and Shastras, as a snake, because it's dangerous, but with broken fangs. So even if it bites us, doesn't get poison. Yes. Hare Krishna. Is there anything else? So thank you very much for your attention. Shri Prabhupada ki jai, Shri Gaur Nitai ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Pramanande, Hari Hari Bol.